One of the easiest ways that we can become demoralized as photographers is if we feel like we don't take enough good photos. And I shouldn't really use the word good because I'm sure your photos are more than good to most people, but it's that idea of them being good enough for us in our eyes as photographers, especially these days when there are so many opportunities for us to compare our work to the work of other photographers, thanks to the likes of Instagram and Facebook and social media in general. And it's worth remembering that one of the ways that we progress and we grow as photographers is by consuming the work of others. It's important to find that inspiration, so we're always, even subconsciously, comparing our work to other photographers that inspire us because we want to improve and we want to strive to take better photos. And I find myself falling into this trap myself all of the time. I go through spells where the photos I take quite often fall short to the final result that I imagine in my head. And I find the antidote to this is just a little bit of perspective. So I ask myself the question, how many good photos should I be taking in any given year? And the answer might shock you. This is where we introduce Ansel Adams. Adams was an American landscape photographer whose black and white images of the American West, most notably Yosemite National Park, arguably defined and influenced an entire genre of photography. There's no denying that Ansel Adams was a pioneering photographer at the start of the 20th century whose prolific career was adorned with accolades and success. He is one of the most important figures in landscape photography. And when you consider the fact that his work was exclusively shot on film and mostly large format film, his total yield of photos would have been considerably less than ours today in the digital age where we can all be pretty snap happy. And that being said, in Ansel's words, 12 significant photographs in any one year is a good crop. That's right, 12 photos, one photo per month. That's pretty sobering. I find we put so much pressure on ourselves to get great photos every time we choose to venture out with our camera, especially when we're trying to plan photo shoots, if we're traveling, going to these amazing landscapes and interesting locations. But perhaps that expectation is slightly unrealistic. By removing that pressure and accepting the fact that there's so much value in going out with your camera, aside from getting good photos, being immersed in nature and the infinite mental health benefits of being in a beautiful location, to the exercise we get from walking around with our camera and lugging our heavy camera bags up a mountain. Really, that whole idea of the sole purpose of going out with your camera is in the pursuit of getting great or good images is maybe too blinkered a way to experience this hobby when there are so many other benefits that we're potentially missing in that pursuit. We really shouldn't ignore those other benefits. And I also think that by remembering that success rate of 12 photos per year, it means that we'll feel a far greater sense of accomplishment when those significant photos emerge. A final thing to consider, and it's going back to that point of Ansel shooting exclusively on film, which was far slower, far more labour intensive, far more costly, is that every shot that he took needed to be considered. Being snap happy just isn't an option when you're shooting in that format. And I think if we adopt that approach ourselves of being more considered, with Ansel he would have been waiting for the right season, for the right conditions, for the right moment to take that shot. And that slower process enables you to take your time, and that, I think, yields greater success. And it's something that I think we're all guilty of, myself included. I sometimes am far too quick to disregard a composition or move on to something else because I'm worried that I'm not going to get the right light or there's going to be something better around the next corner. And I feel like I'm just shooting myself in the foot whenever I do that. And really, when you remember that the stakes are a lot lower, you don't need to get great photos every time. Just go to a location, stick to your guns. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. It'll probably work out the next time. But if you spread yourself too thin, you reduce your chances. And I think that's something that even I am still working on, and I think we could all potentially work on that. It's just that idea of being meticulous. It's that patience, it's perseverance, and it's remembering that the good photos will come. I think we all just need to remember to trust the process. And this topic has prompted me to take a look at my own photos in my own portfolio and see how many photos I'm happy with. And I'm not even going to look in the last 12 months. I'm looking as far back as maybe 2021. And yes, there are certain photos that I can think of now that spring to the forefront of my mind when I think of my photography and some of the experiences, locations and photos that I've taken during that time. But when I consider the fact that I go out with my camera fairly regularly, I do photography professionally, and I definitely prioritize opportunities to go out to locations to do photography, whether those are new locations or revisiting familiar locations to try and refine images that I've taken there in the past. And even so, I'm still not getting 12 images per year, I don't think. It might be kind of close, but when I think of very portfolio worthy shots or images that are like hero images that I'm really, really proud of, yeah, I don't feel like I'm hitting 12. And it's not to say that I haven't taken photos that I'm happy with. Absolutely not. I'm more than happy with a lot of the photos that I've taken. I think there's things there to work on and there's merit to be found. But I think when you're taking those really, really perfect, or quote unquote perfect, there's probably no such thing as perfect, but those really significant images, it's worth bearing in mind that really we shouldn't sort of be striving for those high numbers. It's just a case of enjoying the process. And when I look at my portfolio and I look at some of the images that are maybe just okay images, I still remember having a great time in the field when I was photographing them. And I think that's probably the most important thing. And as I've explored in recent weeks on this channel, that idea of what counts as a significant image can be completely subjective. And whilst there are images that may not be as compositionally perfect or may not necessarily be at the surface a significant image, to me they are quite significant, and I think there's plenty of those that I can point a finger at. So I'd be curious to know how many significant photos you feel you take in any given year. Hopefully this video will maybe just prompt you to have a look back through the archives, I suppose, and leave it down in the comments below. Let me know how many photos you think you have that sort of meet that significant criteria. As always guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to leave it there for today, but I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, do consider hitting the subscribe button and come along for the next video, which will be next week. New videos come out every single Wednesday, unless something goes wrong, in which case it might be Thursday. But Wednesday is the day that I aim for. So I hope to see you next week for another one.